On our top story now, in a much-awaited Supreme Court decision on petitions challenging the ban on hijabs in schools and colleges in Karnataka expected today at 10:30 this morning.
Right, Gargi, a bench of justices as Hemant Gupta and Sudhanshu Bhullar had reserved its judgment on its pleas against the Karnataka High Court judgment, refusing to lift the ban on hijab on the 22nd of last month after hearing arguments for about 10 days. And during those arguments in the top court, the lawyers appearing for the petitioners had insisted that preventing the Muslim girls from wearing the hijab to the classroom will jeopardize their education.
That's right, as they might stop classes, and they had raised various aspects, including on the state government's February 5th order, which banned wearing clothes that disturb equality, integrity and public order in schools and colleges. Well, let's go across to Shrija now for more. And Shrija, this is a massive issue there in Karnataka. It's been hugely controversial. It's led to school and college closures, etc. So everybody, they're really waiting to know what the Supreme Court will decide. Right, Shrija, if you can hear me. All right, we seem to have lost.
Well, it's a big day for especially the students and also for the Muslim community today, because the Supreme Court is slated to pronounce its judgment today on the clutch of petitions that is challenging the Karnataka High Court's judgment, which has, they upheld the ban on the wearing of the hijab in educational institutions. And what's more important to note there, even in the past, we have seen how especially the justices, Mr. Hemant Gupta and Sudhanshu Bhullar, had always had, the history of split verdicts. So it is going to be interesting to watch what really is the verdict or the outcome is going to be with regard to this marathon hearing that went about for at least 10 days. So as far as what the Karnataka High Court had clearly said on March 15th, that is one of the landmark verdict as far as Karnataka goes. It did go on to talk about how hijab is not a religious practice, but dismissing the petitions filed by these Muslim students. They also sought the protection of their right to wear the hijab. And also we went on to see how, especially where the High Court had made a note saying that hijab is just as significant in the Islamic faith. On school uniforms, in fact, they did go on to mention saying that they will have to adhere to the government's order, which the Karnataka government had passed on the 5th of February. Now, that clearly was succumbing to the pressure of the right-wing organizations. And also in terms of what really is expected to examine the Supreme Court, we understand that the High Court, in fact, in this order had observed saying that the protection guaranteed under the Article 25, which is essential or not integral to not. These are certain interpretations that were made in the, in the last few months as far as the High Court is concerned. Now the Supreme Court will also have to consider the contention that the hijab restrictions, are Muslim women's right to privacy and freedom of conscience. Now that was something which was being argued at least in those 10 days of marathon hearing. And as far as the Karnataka government is concerned, they still maintain and stick to, especially saying where the students will have to continue and adhere to the February 5th order, which talks about where no religious garb will be allowed inside educational institutions.
So, Shrija, and on the ground, what is the situation in Karnataka currently? Are girls wearing hijab to, the colleges, then taking them off, going into classrooms? If you could just tell us what it's like over there, because you remember those days when it had become such a huge controversy and they weren't being allowed in and there had been violence and the school shutdowns as well.
Well, of course, the top court is naturally expected to examine whether the Karnataka High Court's application with regard to the essential religious practice in this matter was accurate or not. So that is something where we understand the verdict will be pronounced. And, to talk about what really is happening on ground, we do not see much tension, what we had expected or what we had seen in the last few months, because the place that we're reporting from is Udupi, the epicenter of the hijab protest, and thereafter we saw a cascading effect, where several of the neighboring districts had also seen a confrontation, especially with regard to the hijab wearing students, and also saffron wearing students. So that was the kind of the confrontation that we had witnessed in the educational institutions. We're talking about students as young as 18 and some of them not even major. So there was a communal color, politically that was painted, especially by the BJP itself here in the state of Karnataka. But if you're really talking about what really it is like today, because the verdict is being pronounced, we see that it is calm at the moment, and the schools and colleges are open as usual. But we understand the educational institutions, since the case is still, or the verdict is yet to be pronounced by the Supreme Court, the educational institutions continue to adhere to what the Karnataka government had passed on February 5th, that is barring students from wearing any religious garb, be it hijab or saffron scarves inside educational institutions.
Right. Thank you so much, Shrija, for joining us with all those details. And moving on, in fact, the Supreme Court noted there's a line, a Lakshman Rekha, to how far it can go on challenges to the government policy decisions. And that's expected today, Gargi.
In fact, it said that it will still hear petitions against the 2016 demonetization of high-value currency notes. That Lakshman Rekha, this is of course something the government had decided, but now the Supreme Court saying that they're going to hear this matter on the 9th of November, and has asked the centre to keep all its files ready on demonetization. They're going to go ahead and hear those petitions against the demonetization, saying that yes, we know there's a Lakshman Rekha, but we are going to listen to these petitions which challenge the government's policy decision on demonetization. Now, the very shocking case from Kerala, a case involving human sacrifice and cannibalism, involving two victims, Roslyn and Padma, who were human sacrifice, and they were killed in a most gruesome manner. Those are the details that have emerged now.
Right, Gargi, the man accused, that's Mohammed Shafi, is a psychopath and a sexual pervert who planned and executed the murders as per the police. He roped in a couple, Bhagwal Singh as well as his wife Leila, promising them financial gains through ritual killings. Our colleague Sneha gets us the details.
Two women, 49-year-old Roslyn and 52-year-old Padma, victims of a shocking and almost unbelievable human sacrifice. This is the main accused, Mohammed Shafi or Rashid, a man who the police say is a psychopath and pervert who enjoys inflicting pain. Earlier this year, Shafi reached out to Bhagwal and Laila, two other accused in this case, a couple who live near Tiruvalla. Shafi's motive was sadism. His accomplice, Bhagwal and Laila, were convinced that all their debts would magically disappear with human sacrifice. The two victims in this case, who disappeared within 4 months of each other, were independently lured by Shafi with the promise of financial gain for acting in pornographic videos. Bhagwal and Laila run a massage parlor, and Bhagwal, locals say, is a CPM supporter. The party has distanced itself, saying he is neither a party member nor an office bearer.
Our investigation further revealed that this is not the only case, but there has been another incident in June of 2022 in another police station in Ernakulam rural district. He's raped a 75-year-old woman and inflicted very grievous injuries on her, even including her private parts. So the same modus operandi was committed in these two cases also.
The police now believe that the entire murder was part of a ritual. Their throats slit, their private parts were mutilated. In fact, the first victim, Roslyn, was dismembered. 53 parts of her body have been recovered from multiple pits in the home of the accused couple. The police say that they cracked this story on the basis of a person missing report when Padma went missing in September. They tracked her missing phone to Shafi, who they arrested. Police say one of the accused have confessed to cannibalism, but they need to probe this further. DNA tests of the bodies would be done. With camera person SP Babu, Sneha Koshi for NDTV.
Right, an absolutely horrifying story there.
Very shocking indeed, Gargi.
Well, moving on to news now from UP and Uttarakhand. In fact, an encounter. 5 policemen have been injured in a clash with the mining mafia. 2 of the 5 injured policemen have gunshot injuries, and there are also policemen who are missing.
That's right, Gargi. Uttar Pradesh's Moradabad police was chasing a member of the mining mafia named Zafar, who had a bounty of 50,000 rupees on his head. The mining mafia had chased and snatched the weapons of the police personnel. Some policemen are reportedly missing, as you pointed out. While being chased, the mafia member Zafar crossed the Uttarakhand border. And this is the Moradabad police team which fired back at the mafia. In that process, one woman got injured. In fact, she lost her life.
Right, very tragic, and there have been protests over the loss of life of that woman.
जफर का आज हाउट परसुएट किया गया। आज जो है सूचना मिली जब पुलिस टीम को यहाँ पर स्थानीय टीम को, तो इसको चेज किया गया और ये हमारे यानी उत्तर प्रदेश बॉर्डर से होता हुआ उत्तराखंड की तरफ गया। और वहाँ पर जो अभी तक जानकारी प्राप्त हुई है, घर में जाके इसने शरण ली। वहाँ पर जब पुलिस टीम पहुंची है तो वहाँ पे फोर्सफुली पुलिस टीम को बंधक बनाया गया। बंधक बनाने के उपरांत वहाँ पर जो हमारे पुलिस कर्मियों का कहना है कि वहाँ पर पहले बहुत ही गंभीर रूप से मारपीट की गई और जब पुलिस कर्मियों ने भागने का प्रयास किया तो उसमें बेतरतीब फायरिंग भी की गई है। अभी शुरू में हमने बताया था कि 5 लोग इसके अंदर इंजर्ड है, जिसमें 2 पुलिस कर्मियों की गोली लगी है। इसमें कुछ पुलिस कर्मी हमारे अभी भी मिसिंग है, साथ साथ 3 वेपन जो हैं हम लोग के अभी मिसिंग है। इस संबंध में हम लगातार उत्तराखंड पुलिस से कोऑर्डिनेट कर रहे हैं कि जो हमारे मिसिंग लोग हैं उनको जल्दी से रिकवर किया जाए।
बीते रात को जो सूचना आई थी हमारे कुंडा पुलिस थाना को, सूचना ये था कि मुरादाबाद पुलिस की तरफ से सूचना आई, इमरजेंसी सूचना टाइप आ गई कि सूचना ये था कि वो एक ऑपरेशन करने आए थे, कुछ किसी को पकड़ने आए थे। ये उनके अनुसार है कि वो एक व्यक्ति को या एक इनामी अपराधी को पकड़ने आए थे। उस समय जो है यहाँ पे आ गए थे और ऑपरेशन कर दिए उन्होंने, मतलब घेरा गोटो पकड़ दकड़ का। उस समय काफ़ी भिड़ंत हो गया, झड़प हो गया लोकल लोगों के साथ यहाँ पे, और झड़प के बाद जो है आपसी फायरिंग हुई और इसमें वो इंजुरी हुआ है करके, तो मतलब इस प्रकार की भिड़ंत का सूचना आई। तत्काल हमारे फोर्स रवानगी हो गई, वहाँ पे फोर्स रवानगी हो गए। देखा तो कि एक महिला को ऑलरेडी गोली लग चुका था और वो जो है वहाँ पे ब्रॉड डेड हो गई थी हॉस्पिटल में। और यहाँ पे भी मतलब हम मुरादाबाद पुलिस के कुछ सादे वस्त्रों में कुछ व्यक्ति थे जो मुरादाबाद पुलिस के कर्मचारीगण थे, उनका भी इंजरी हो गया था। तत्काल हमने उनको भी शिफ्ट करा दिया इलाज के लिए, परंतु वो इलाज के दौरान हॉस्पिटल से वो जो है अभी मुरादाबाद चले गए और वहाँ पे वो उपचाराधीन है।
Welcome back. After loan apps racket, now it's investment apps racket. A Chinese investment fraud of 903 crore rupees that was running its racket over India, China, Taiwan, Cambodia as well as the UAE has now been busted by the police in Hyderabad, Gaigi.
That's right, and 10 people who were running the Hawala scam from Delhi and Mumbai have also been taken into custody, which includes 2 foreign nationals, a Chinese, a Taiwanese national. NDTV Zuma Sudhi spoke to the Hyderabad Police Commissioner, C.V. Anand, who says this could be just the tip of the iceberg.
If during the COVID pandemic, the Telangana police had exposed the loan app racket, it is now the investment fraud happening through apps that the Hyderabad police is in fact exposed. I have with me Hyderabad's police commissioner. The volumes that you're talking about, 903 crores just to 2 legal money exchange agencies.
Yes.
What are we seeing here and how is this fraud actually happening? And you said you acted on a complaint that in fact came to you in July of 2022.
Yes. Actually, this is a new type of fraud. The Chinese investment fraud, we can call it, because the masterminds are sitting there. We've got the names now because of the arrest of 2 Chinese nationals. Now, the worrying thing is the MO, the modus operandi is to use authorized money changers, authorized by the Reserve Bank of India, to do these transactions. Now, in this, what has happened is, briefly, investment apps are being floated throughout the country. Several types of investment apps are there. So gullible investors, who are promised a huge return on investment, are encouraged through WhatsApp groups to join in, and they send them some returns in the beginning. Then they tend to invest bigger amounts, and when a sizable amount comes into that account, then they shut him off. So you can imagine 903 crores has been collected by these
2 exchanges.
2 exchanges. Now these, in this particular case, there are 2 main people, 2 verticals. Zindai Technologies was opened by one Virender Singh and one Bentank Technologies was opened by one Sanjay Kumar, both of Delhi. Now they have opened a lot of virtual accounts and then got the transfer of the money through these virtual accounts, which actually disguises and doesn't come into the purview of the banking system. Now, Navneet
Are you saying this money actually doesn't pass through bank routes at all? You mentioned about 15 bank accounts that have been opened.
Yeah, they are virtual bank accounts which are virtual in nature, but perhaps they are not being watched. That is what the huge flow of money through these virtual accounts is showing. Now, coming to the authorized money changers, now Navneet Kaushik is the main man. He is a resident of Delhi who has been arrested. And he has got the license to run two money changers. One is Ranjan Money Corp, Private Limited. It got a license in June 2021. And through this, in 7 months, the total volume of transactions, forex transactions, was 441 crores. And then the second one, called KDS, in 38 days, it had a volume of transactions was 462 crore. Now this totals to 903 crores, which is encashed into dollars and through money changers. And it is being sent out of the country.
Welcome back. News on the economy now. And inflation climbed to a 5-month high at 7.41% in September from a year ago, and this due to higher food and energy costs.
Right, Gargi, this is well above the upper end of RBI's 2 to 6% tolerance band in each month this year. Priyanshi Sharma has the details.
Inflation rate is at a 5-month high. It has risen to the highest level since April this year. The inflation rate for September is at 7.4% and the rate has risen for the second straight month. As you can see in that graph, inflation has been above the Reserve Bank's target, the 6% target for the whole year. A specifically concerning point is that rural India is being hit by higher prices more than urban India. Rural inflation is above urban inflation for the 4th straight month. Rural inflation is at 7.56% versus urban inflation that's at 7.27%. Now, what are the categories that are hurting the most? Highest inflation is in the fuel and light category at 10.4%. But what impacts the inflation rate the most is the food and beverage category with a weightage of 46%. And food inflation has risen from 7.6% in August to 8.6% in September.
Now, the government will extend a one-time grant of 22,000 crore to 3 state-owned oil PSUs.
That's right, Gargi. This, as per the government, is to cover for the losses they incurred on selling domestic cooking gas or LPG below cost in the last 2 years. And let's just listen in to what, Anurag Thakur had to say.
जो हमारी पेट्रोलियम कंपनीज हैं, पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग की जो ऑयल मार्केटिंग कंपनीज हैं, जून 2020 से लेकर जून 2022 तक 22,000 करोड़ रुपए का जो इन्होंने खर्चा वहन किया है, वो वन टाइम ग्रांट भारत सरकार 22,000 करोड़ रुपए की दे रही है ताकि आम नागरिक के ऊपर, देश की सामान्य जनता जो हमारे देश के नागरिक है उसके ऊपर इसका बोझ ना पड़े। हम लोग इंपोर्ट तो करना ही पड़ता है और दुनिया भर में दाम मेरे से और आपसे छिपे किसी से नहीं है। अगर 300% वृद्धि की बात मैं दुनिया भर में कर रहा हूं तो आप कल्पना कर ही सकते हैं कि अगर कुल मिलाकर देखा जाए तो कितना प्रभाव पड़ता सीधा जनता पर। कहीं ना कहीं जो हम लोग सब्सिडी वाला पार्ट है या जो दबाव इनके ऊपर ऑयल मार्केटिंग कंपनीज के ऊपर आया, जो दाम दुनिया भर में बढ़े, उसको रिकवर करने के लिए हमने वन टाइम ग्रांट दी ताकि इनके ऊपर बोझ उसका ना आए। जनता के ऊपर तो बचाए ही बचाए, लेकिन ऑयल मार्केटिंग कंपनीज के भी 22,000 करोड़ रुपये बहुत बड़ी अमाउंट होती है। उनकी बैलेंस शीट भी खराब ना, उनके वर्किंग पर भी, काम करने पर भी प्रभाव ना पड़े, लेकिन कुल मिलाकर जनता को अपनी सेवाएं भी देते रहें, उसमें बाधित ना हो, उनके ऊपर भी दाम ना ज्यादा पड़े, उसके लिए भी कदम उठाए गए हैं।
In other news, Byju's has booked a loss of 4,588 crore for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2021. That's 19 times more than the preceding fiscal.
Right, Gargi, but India's most valuable startup now claims to have a plan to turn profitable by 2023 March, and Byju's is expected to sack around 2,500 staff, but is set to hire about 10,000 teachers.
And a large part of the hiring is likely to be in Indian markets, and focus will be on avoiding redundancies, duplication of roles by leveraging technology better. So Byju's there going into losses, and they have a plan in place. So also, I don't understand how they're sponsoring cricket and football at the same time with such losses. In other news now, the Shiv Sena's Uddhav Thackeray camp has found itself in a quandary over the Andheri polls due next month. The candidate it was hoping to field, late MLA Ramesh Latke's wife Rutuja Latke, might be unable to contest if her resignation is not accepted by the Mumbai civic body.
That's right, Gargi. The last date of filing nominations is the 14th of this month. If her resignation is not accepted within the next day, she cannot contest. Our colleague Sohit has the details.
Ahead of the first electoral battle between the two Senas, the Shinde government has stalled the candidate of Uddhav Sena. Rutuja Latke was seen waiting to meet the municipal commissioner. She needs the officer, who is not a politician, to accept her resignation, which she had submitted a month ago. This will allow her to contest the assembly by-election on 3rd November. The Uddhav Shiv Sena has appealed to the High Court, which will hear the case tomorrow. The deadline for nomination papers is 14th October.
रुतुजा लटके के बारे में हम माध्यम से ही सुन रहे हैं कि उनको शिंदे गुट में जाने के लिए उनके ऊपर दबाव है. उनको ये कहा जा रहा है कि हमारे पास आ जाओ, आपका रेजिग्नेशन तुरंत मंजूर होगा. कोई लोगों ने, पत्रकारों ने मुझे ये भी बताया कि उनको मिनिस्ट्री की ऑफर दी जा रही है. जब पूरे के पूरा कानून पूरा किया जाता है तो अगर कोई कानून में गलती है तो रिजेक्ट करना चाहिए. रिजेक्ट भी नहीं कर रहे, पास भी नहीं कर रहे. उनके बात करने के टाइम तो पता चल रहा है, कुछ बातें हमको ऑफ द रिकॉर्ड बता भी देते हैं, लेकिन इसका जो दिख रहा है वो ये तो स्पष्ट हो रहा है कि दबाव में ये सब चल रहा है.
The BMC Commissioner Iqbal Singh Chahal says he has much more time. I can take a decision on it within 30 days. Resignation letter has been submitted on 3rd October. There is no government pressure on me. The high-stakes by-poll today saw the Communist Party of India pledging its support to the Uddhav Sena, a right-wing party. The Deputy Chief Minister spoke up on the allegations against his government.
महानगर पालिका के इस्तीफे के बारे में उनके अपने नियम होते हैं, उनको उसकी पूरी स्वायत्तता है. सरकार उसमें कोई हस्तक्षेप नहीं करती, इसलिए हमारे हस्तक्षेप का कोई सवाल नहीं है. जो बड़ा साहब की शिवसेना है और भारतीय जनता पार्टी है, ये दोनों मिलाकर ये चुनाव लड़ने वाले हैं.
इतने नीचे लेवल पे जाके काम करने वाले शिंदे साहब कभी भी नहीं, ना उन्होंने जिंदगी में किया है. मैं उद्धव ठाकरे नीचे किसी को तकलीफ देने के लिए कौन से लेवल पे जा सकते हैं, मैं एक नहीं 100 एग्जाम्पल दे सकता हूँ. अब शिंदे साहब ने अगर किसी को तकलीफ दी है आज तक पॉलिटिकल राइवलरी में, तो आप एक एग्जाम्पल दिखाइए.
The last date to file the nomination for the Andheri East Assembly by-election is on 14th of October, but it is still not clear who will be the candidates contesting from this election. And only after a decision is made by the Bombay High Court on Thursday, there will be some clarity regarding this by-election. In Mumbai, with camera person Ashok Mahadik, Sohit Mishra, NDTV.
Let's get you some international news now. The United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday adopted a resolution condemning the Russian annexation of the 4 Ukrainian regions. A total of 143 members voted in favor of the resolution, while 5 voted against it. As many as 35 abstained from the resolution, including India, Gargi.
Right, India abstaining from voting there. The resolution comes days after Russia vetoed a similar proposal in the Security Council, in which India had abstained as well. And the latest resolution adopted by the members, where no one wields a veto, condemns Russia's attempted illegal annexation of the 4 Ukrainian regions.
It is also unfortunate that as the trajectory of the Ukrainian conflict unfolds, the entire global south has suffered a substantial collateral damage. As developing countries face the brunt of the conflict's consequences on food, fuel and fertilizer supplies, it is critical that the voice of the global south be heard and their legitimate concerns duly addressed. We must therefore not initiate measures that further complicate a struggling global economy. Mr. President, there are other pressing issues at play, some of which have not been adequately addressed in the resolution voted today. Our decision to abstain is consistent with our well thought out national position.
Now, despite the escalation of hostilities between Ukraine and Russia, President Putin says he is ready to supply gas to Europe by an intact part of Nord Stream 2.
A gas pipeline that has been operationalized as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine early this year. The final decision now in the court of the EU.
В приличных компаниях говорят, highly likely, все понятно. Все ясно, кто там за этим стоит и кто выгодоприобретатель. Можно теперь действительно в больших масштабах навязывать европейским странам природный сжиженный газ из Соединенных Штатов, который явно уступает по конкурентоспособности российскому трубопроводному газу. Ведь цены на американские СПГ значительно выше, это всем хорошо было и раньше известно, ну а сейчас тем более.
All right, news back home now and a look at the weather.
Right, let's get you an account of unseasonal rainfall that's we've seen in the northern part of the country, but also the situation in the northeast. Extreme weather events in the month of October. In Arunachal Pradesh, a surplus of 625% has been reported in terms of the way it's rained in the last 24 hours. In Assam, surplus rain of 354% has been recorded in the last 24 hours alone. In Anantapur, a surplus of 334% of the way it's rained in the last 24 hours alone. Incessant rain and water release from Nepal has resulted in massive flooding in Uttar Pradesh, which in turn has resulted in crop damage being reported by farmers. 200 villages have been affected by floods in Uttar Pradesh as rain continues. Moving on, the two-time Olympic medalist PV Sindhu made an appearance at the PNB MetLife Junior Badminton Championship 2022 at the Indira Gandhi Stadium in Delhi, where she spoke about her injury, Gargi.
That's right. She also spoke about her recovery process and the forced break that she had to take due to the stress fracture that she suffered at the Birmingham Games. She told NDTV that she's looking to make a comeback with the BWF Badminton World Tour Finals in December.
Like I mentioned at the very beginning, it seems like you have taken over the social media. You are the undisputed queen of the social media. This is a forced break for you because nobody expects an injury and nobody, as a professional, you don't want to sit out and take a break. Tell us and tell your fans what have you been up to during this break time that you have got?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had to take a couple of weeks of rest, but then, you know, I'm able to play standing strokes and do some upper body and stuff like that. And apart from that, yeah, a bit of events here and there. That is what I'm doing right now because, as you said, yeah, this is the only time I get a break. And I think once I'm back on tour, I think it's a continuous process where we continuously have tournaments because seeing the 2023 calendar has been a hectic year. It is going to be a hectic year. And also we start our Olympic qualification soon in 2023. So I think this is the only time, and that is why I say, you know, I am taking it in a positive way, thinking that this is the only time that I get a break.